a little bit of feedback on what we learned from the maintenance strategy class, because it's going to be, this particular class ties in, you know, into that lesson. So I'd like to have a few comments. At least 3 of us should you know, pop our hands up and refresh us on what we learned in the maintenance strategy class, which is the class before the last one. Monday's class. Yes. You can refer to your notes. I need to get feedback on what you learned. If you've done your surveys already, you have already given that feedback online, but let's hear it from you here. Take away from the maintenance strategy class. Who's going to go first? I don't have any hand up. Should I call names? Okay, Udra, please, let's hear from you.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Paul. Good evening, everyone. I'll be brief so that we could start off with this classes. Our facility maintenance strategy was a well-detailed course, and we were able to understand what maintenance is. We were able to see challenges, the objectives. We have different type of maintenance in place, and we're also able to understand more about how, we're also able to understand tools in place used for this maintenance. We're able to see differences between reactive maintenance, preventive, and also preventive plant maintenance, which is the PPM, and areas in which it functions, advantages, disadvantages. We as facility managers, then we are to understand the scope of the facility of the job and know which it applies to. There are some maintenance done on properties that requires a bit more years before such equipment has to be worked on, because from the OEM, they have already put in place things that warranties and all these things are very important. And we would also see documentations regarding maintenance, knowing your system, your equipment, those specifications for every equipment. So in case there should be spares, in case there should also be a point in time that this asset in place in that facility needs evaluation, all this. So we're able to understand broad concepts of maintenance, the strategic steps, and also how we could always plan well when it's always come.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks a lot for that. I need one person to give me the three core maintenance strategies that we should adopt. Somebody else, please. We said there were 3 strategies. All right, so let me hear from, who will go first now? Jude, let's hear from you, please.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Paul, and good evening to the class. For me, the 3 core maintenance strategies that we could adopt is run to failure, preventive maintenance, and then predictive. So these are the three core.
Fantastic. Excellent. Excellent. All right. I need one more person to comment on what ROCM means to you. Quickly. Reliability-centered maintenance. Do it again. No, someone else. Someone else. We had 49 in class on that day, so somebody else should be able to tell me what ROCM means. You just gave us 3 strategies, so.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we said that RCM is reliability-centered maintenance, and then those 3 maintenance that you mentioned, the strategy. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. So okay. Those 3 are the strategies. RCM is
RCM is when you're planning out your own strategy for your facility. You could combine more than one. So it's not, okay, I use PPM for everything. Some assets, some equipment we need run to failure, and then you plan for it already. Okay, so I have replacement, and then some others will need PPM, some others will need CBM, but it's combining, using the RCM hierarchy, like to access it, so where each asset falls in and what kind of maintenance is best for that asset, depending on the strategy or on the, of the organization. So it's not one size fits all.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much, Amaka. If you're in a physical class, we would have all stood up and banged the table for you. Well done.
Thank you.
So I needed to do that recap because when we give you assignments that have to do with maintenance, people often, get it kind of twisted. You cannot have a maintenance plan without a maintenance strategy. Okay, so I can't be teaching maintenance planning when the maintenance strategy class that I taught, you don't understand it. And that's why I needed to do that recap. So please, they tie together, and I'll be very keen on seeing how we deploy them. If you notice, in the project docket we've given to you, when you get to the maintenance plan project 3, on that, is it project 3 or project 4? That is maintenance plan. You will see a column on that spreadsheet that is maintenance strategy. So you have to determine the strategy first, thinking about reliability, thinking about costs, thinking about all the implications, all those considerations we talked about. So you use that to define a strategy for every asset line item, every asset. So by the time you begin to create plans, frequencies, activities, schedules, and all that breakdown that we're going to be looking at today, then you are doing them because you now know what you are doing, not just creating. Not just creating a plan without understanding why. So that's exactly why I wanted us to get that out of the way. So today we're looking at maintenance planning and records. So we're going to look at key considerations, the planning process, how to plan, execute, and control, a little bit on monitoring and evaluation, and then the recording aspect of our plans. If you create plans, you must be able to report on them, and you must be able to have records or evidence that those maintenance is actually taking place. So diving straight into it, what is a maintenance plan? A maintenance plan is an activity workflow, how to carry out the maintenance, all the scheduled and unscheduled activities that you expect to execute are tracked as tasks. They're created as task items in a plan. So what is a plan? A plan is any writing in which an action is taken, or in which an action is presented, and you're trying to define the answers to key questions on how that action will be executed. So if you're asking, if you're creating a plan for any kind of action or any kind of activity, you want to answer questions like, what is it? When will it be done? How will it be done? Who will be doing it? And so forth. So the moment you are able to identify what you want to achieve and all the how, why, when, who, why it's not there, how, when, who will execute them, then you are creating the plan. So in essence, plans are list of tasks or activities with their when, who will execute them. So basically, if you have something in your head that you're thinking about, you're trying to figure it out how to do it, you now, even if you now fully understand what to do and you've created a mental sequence, it's still not a plan. The plan has to be written down, has to be presented in a format that can be seen by not only the person who's creating the plan. And we like to look at planning from a life cycle view, where you think of every asset. You know, the building is not an asset to a facility manager. The assets in the building, you know, are the building components: roof, walls, floors, windows, foundation, doors, ceiling, and the rest. Those are asset items that the FM needs to plan for. So if you're deciding, what am I supposed to maintain? I'm not going to say I'm maintaining a building. I'm going to say I'm maintaining, you know, the various components of the building, which are assets in themselves. Then the equipment that are installed in the building, so the borehole, the piping network, the electrical systems, the power generators, and so on and so forth. These are all asset items as far as an FM is concerned when it comes to maintenance planning. And then I'll look at all the movables, you know, furniture, fittings, fixtures that go into the facility. These are also asset line items. My thinking is, for every asset line item, there must be a life cycle view. Every asset is acquired, installed, put into use in terms of operations, is maintained throughout a certain life cycle period, and eventually ends up being discarded or used up or replaced, right? So in essence, the maintenance aspect is the midpoint where, after I've acquired, installed, I'm doing maintenance to make sure the operations go smoothly, and then I'm thinking of the exit plan. Now, in everything I do, before I even acquire the assets, I consider the maintenance program, right? And I also have that in mind in making decisions of what kind of options, what kind of assets to acquire, you know, what kind of maintenance strategy I'm going to deploy when I acquire those assets, and so on and so forth. Knowing fully well that if I maintain well, I could use the assets for its full useful life. If I maintain poorly, the assets will have reduced useful life, and then I'll have to do a replacement at some point, okay? So in looking at this life cycle, every asset that I take over is either brand new, fairly used, or fairly new, old, malfunctioning, or useless. In any way, I should be able to categorize my assets in terms of how functional they are. And the way I can categorize my assets in terms of how functional they are is by performing a facility audit or facility condition assessment. What a facility audit or facility condition assessment does is to help me establish the current condition of the asset, whether it's brand new or fairly used, fairly old, or old and useless. At the end of the facility condition assessment, I can now say this is where this asset is on its life cycle. Now, at every point in time, the maintenance program I have for any asset cannot be exclusive of its current condition. My maintenance program must always respond to the condition of the asset. And that's why it's very important for me to have a full understanding of the assets that I have in place in terms of the conditions they are in. Because, give a typical example, we find generators being maintained, after every 200 or 250 hours, and it is consistent for most sites, okay? So they buy a brand new generator and they are servicing it every 250 hours. They have one that is 20,000 hours run and they are servicing it every 250 hours. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. The new generator and the old gen don't have the same level of wear and tear. They don't have the same impact on the things you are throwing away in terms of how quickly the oil degrades with dissolved metals in it, how quickly the filters go bad, and how quickly other soot and dirt and sludges gather inside the engine that makes me want to renew their servicing. So in essence, I'm supposed to run with my maintenance program that adapts to the condition, especially those of us who do PPMs for most of the critical assets that we have. As the asset becomes older, I need to intensify my maintenance program in such a way that I can maintain a steady delivery, steady results for the users. Item 2 in this life cycle view of planning is you must make maintenance plan inclusive of all assets, your asset register. So many times I go to sites for an inspection and I ask to see the maintenance plan, and I see only line items in that plan for assets that require PPM. The impression I get is that because every other asset don't require routine, pre-scheduled activities, they don't need to be in the maintenance plan. That is wrong. In fact, that is a very bad practice, because the other assets that are supposed to work with run to failure or predictive strategy, you have ignored them. You have not adopted those strategy. You are not maintaining them. You've not even created a plan for how you're going to manage and maintain them. And in many cases, you don't have a budget to respond even for the run to failure assets. You go cap in hand to management every time you have an issue, and you look very irresponsible over time. And that is because you created a maintenance plan that did not encompass all of your asset register. Your asset register as it is, everything should be what you create a maintenance plan for. What differentiates one asset to the other is the strategy that you have adopted for that asset. That's why if you create that plan, any asset that you put in the strategy of preventive maintenance, for example, that asset line item will have plenty of activities. There will be all kinds of weekly, monthly, quarterly activities lined up with the scheduled itineraries for executing them, responsible parties and all that. They're trying to answer the question, what, when, and how, isn't it? And then when an item says run to failure, it means it's activity free. But at some point, there must be a budget, an estimate to account for when that asset breaks. And you must have, in many instances, a standby contract, a call-off contract in place for responding to that. So the budget and the contracts, being able to plan them and make sure they are on ground to respond is part of deploying a maintenance program for those assets, even when their strategy is run to failure and not preventive. So your asset register is what becomes your template for all maintenance planning. So if it's out of a, if you filtered that maintenance plan from your asset register and you use the column for the strategy to say, filter out all those that are preventive maintenance, and it filters out, and I see gen, ACs, and so on and so forth. I'll say, okay, fine. It came out of a bigger, broader plan. Not that those few items in your maintenance plan is all that you planned for your maintenance. That is very, very wrong and needs to change. Now, every asset will have a list of maintenance tasks. So the roof, the walls, the foundations, the windows, the doors, each of them have a list of maintenance tasks. Now, like I said a moment ago, those that are run to failure will not have those maintenance tasks in place for routine, which means the tasks are not scheduled to happen, at certain frequency, but they will be there. A task like having a contract in place, for example, a call of contract to respond to a breakdown, for example, will be there. Tasks like ensure that budget and funding is available will be there. Ensure that certain inspections are done to pick up defects as they occur will also be there, right? So those are the kind of things I'm talking about. Every asset must have maintenance tasks attached. And then you now create the time and schedule for maintenance activity. For every task that you identify will be performed for each of the assets, you now have a frequency and a schedule. So a frequency is it going to happen daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, every 10 years, and so on and so forth. And then a schedule, which means you bring in your calendar into that plan. And on the calendar indicates what weekly means. Because, for example, weekly should not be all days of the week, right? So if an activity is supposed to be done weekly, I need to know which day of the week. So it's going to be every Wednesday or every Thursday or every Friday, every Monday. That is identified and calendared out. The same thing for the monthly, quarterly, and so on. They must be identified. Now I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And maintenance programs are put in place for us to maintain assets to their useful life. We expect that when we maintain very well, plan very well, and execute our maintenance very well, we should expect that the assets will not break down anyhow. We also expect that the assets will serve us for their useful life, because we often get that erroneous expectation. Sometimes it's just being ahead of ourselves when we expect that if you maintain very well, the assets will never die. Every asset will die, no matter how well you maintain them. They all have their degradation curve, and over time, the quality and output from the assets due to wear and tear will degrade, right? And they will degrade to a point where they need to be replaced. Now, because you're using a life cycle view, what has happened is that you have set its useful time in your records right from when you were acquiring the asset. So it's not a case of going back to check the asset and say, oh, this asset is old, cannot do another 1 year. I already knew as at the time I was installing it that I expect this asset to do 8 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, right? And that is recorded. And I'm now doing my maintenance to ensure that I achieve those useful years or useful life for my assets. If I don't execute my maintenance, I don't plan it and execute it properly, and I will end up having those assets fail faster. Okay? So maintenance is not designed to extend useful life perpetually. It's designed to achieve useful life that has been predetermined. Now, when you maintain very well, when it gets close to the time you predetermined as a useful life of an asset, you do an inspection, the asset still looks good, and you want to stretch it. It's allowed. That's why we do overhauling of generators. At the time you're overhauling the generator is already due for replacement, right? So we see that we've maintained very well, and if we change a few piston and rings and some core engine components, we can give that generator another 1 year or another 18 months. And what do? Yes, we make the investment to give it a new lease of life, like we say, when we do such major overhaul or remodeling of buildings and assets. So the maintenance planning can be, if you use the life cycle approach we just talked about, long-term is I'm acquiring, and this is how long I want it to be, right? This is going to be due for replacement. I'm seeing the end from the beginning, as it were. And then short-term, all of those daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly activities that I will perform, all right? So short-term items are less than 3 years, specific actions. There are budgets, you prepare a budget every year, you have a cash flow projection, and then you run short-term maintenance using your operational funds, which is your OPEX. Okay, and then this is operational. You basically noting what scope of services will be done for the maintenance, what objectives for the servicing, the tasks and actions to be done, remedial action in case of a breakdown or a failure, as well as all the routine activities you perform on an ongoing basis. And then time scales, which is basically looking at the frequencies for different activities happening, resource requirements and performance indicators. You're basically just doing a day-to-day monitoring and supervision of the asset and maintaining it to ensure that it keeps producing results on an ongoing basis. For the long-term maintenance are tied to capital expenditure, major investments in the assets. Things like the overhaul I mentioned is give an asset a new lease of life, replacing major components, or aspects of it. They are more long-term. They are longer than 3 years in terms of the impact and the planning horizon. And then they are strategic. You are deliberately planning for that asset to be able to meet the needs of the organization's strategic objective, all right? And that link needs to happen. So if an organization has a financial strategy, you don't create a maintenance program that frustrates that financial strategy. You want to help achieve that long-term organization's strategy by creating an overall corporate facility management long-term strategic plan. So what you're basically doing in this sense is you are taking every component and telling the management, in 2021, these are the things that will be replaced, these are the things that will be overhauled, these are the things that will be remodeled in 2022, 2023. We are going to create that schedule all the way to 2030, for example. So every year, when it's time to do your capital expenditure budget, you don't start from the scratch, as it were, because you already have a long-term plan that have captured all the assets in terms of major non-routine investment, replacement, remodeling, overhauling type work, okay, that needs to be executed, just to ensure that the assets keep giving value to the organization you work with. So let's get back to the basics, as it were. What do you put in a maintenance plan? What goes into a maintenance plan? A detailed description of each maintenance task. So the plan starts with the asset register, the item you want to maintain inside that asset register, and then you pick that item and you create its own plan. Its own plan includes the description of the maintenance task. So you list out the maintenance task and you provide a scope for each of those task item. The frequency, how often they will be done, the resources, which team or individuals will be performing, whether in-house or outsourced. The equipment condition, of course, should be noted because the equipment condition is what determines the frequency and the scope of services for that maintenance. And the type of maintenance task, you have to indicate whether those are routine, repetitive, planned preventive tasks, or they are reactive tasks, because sometimes, of course, part of what we do in maintenance is to react and respond to things that either about to break down, as in the case of predictive maintenance, or things that just broke down, as in the case of run to failure maintenance. And then there's an estimation of delivery timeline, tools and equipment required, care of equipment and systems. You put all of this in. So there's a maintenance plan for every asset. We in this part of the world will probably find that a little bit difficult, considering the number of line items you have in your asset register. But a spreadsheet that has additional lines or columns, where if you take an asset, you identify tasks that need to be performed to maintain that asset, and each of those tasks are listed in additional rows under the asset. And then columns take care of resource planning, the conditions, the strategy that has been deployed, and so on. So you can have additional information provided before you even get to the scheduling part of the maintenance activities you have in mind. Why do we have a maintenance plan? We want to ensure that our facilities function safely and effectively and efficiently. So what's different between effectively and efficiently? Effectively means it's working as it's delivering the kind of results that we hope in the direction that we are looking for it. So effectively, if I'm providing maintenance, for example, for air conditioning, I want to ensure that the air conditioning system is always supporting the work that we are doing there. So it's available and it is cooling sufficiently. Efficiently is at what cost, for example, at what speed of response when something breaks down. So we are ensuring that the facility is providing all of these three requirements. It's safe, it's meeting our needs exactly how we want it, and it's not costing us too much or taking us too much time or creating distractions or failures in other areas as efficient resilience. Reduce the possibility of hazards and accidents. Of course, if your equipment is effective and efficient and it's safe, hazards and accidents will be reduced or eliminated. Service disruption, of course, will be reduced or eliminated. Facility systems will be preserved. Okay, the asset value will be maintained. Deterioration will be slowed down deliberately because you have a maintenance plan and you are acting on it. And then maintenance costs could be a big factor for most organizations, where you have a certain margin of profitability from the business you are doing. You don't want to be pumping all of the money into an overhead line item like maintenance. Maintenance is often very huge on the bottom line in terms of profit and loss, and as such, as little as you can spend, the better. If you spend too much on maintenance, you're not adding value. All right. So no matter how good you think you are, maintenance must be at a reasonable cost. And then extend the useful life of an asset. This is more like extend it to its useful life. If you can edit that, extend your asset to its useful life. Optimal availability and reliability of facility system. So availability and reliability. Availability is always working. Anytime we need it, it is, we see that it's always available. Reliability is that when we are using it, it does not fail, it does not surprise us. We're always, whenever we expect it to be on, it is always on and delivering its results. Make informed decisions on systems repair, replace, and renewal. If you have a plan, then you will consciously prepare for critical things like, when are we going to repair, replace, and renew this asset? They will not come to you as surprises. Those, oh, it failed, it's not my fault, it's an act of God. Never an act of God when it comes to physical assets. You can be proactive enough to understand exactly the condition, understand the different nuances that equipment or assets public components is throwing at you, and prepare yourself with adequate projections on when certain activities need to be done to prevent some negative occurrences, and when certain activities need to be done to keep the assets running at a steady state. Some benefits of maintenance planning: easier to budget for future maintenance. Cost savings is a no-brainer. Reduce costs of overtime. If you don't plan, things will keep dropping on you as surprises, and the cost they'll be dropping on you as surprises, you will end up, having overtime. I mean, there are people who have not done much for the day, only for a problem to, throw its ugly, raise ugly head at 4 or 3, and then you see yourself walking to 7 or 8, and then you have overtime costs. And then better maintenance workflow. All of those, that kind of confusion or disarray in your site will be reduced because there are maintenance plans. Everybody knows where they are plugged in, the various activities that they'll be performing on site. So there'll be no confusion. There will be no, somebody's going to store for this, somebody's going to the shed for that, and they are not coordinated. They know exactly what needs to be done. They know where they fit in as individuals into that maintenance process, and they will act according to directives because there is actually a plan that gives them directives. And of course, your equipment will not suffer excessive downtime. Reduction in major repairs on equipment, reduce premature replacement of parts and components. This is also something else that we consider in the strategy class. There are so many times we take certain maintenance actions that amount to wastages, right? So we need to be conscious, plan consciously. Because if you're not doing planning, that's when you end up just doing month to month till forever, the same sequence. If you're doing planning, you're going to ask a few questions. This job we're servicing at 250 hours. Do we still need to be doing 250 hours, right? So that's exactly what the kind of question you ask. And there will be reasons adduced for either extending it beyond 250 hours or bringing it down to 150 or 200 hours because you understand the equipment and its condition at that time. Life expectancy of the equipment. Equipment maintenance is done regularly because there'll be less missed opportunities for maintenance because you have the maintenance plan in your front all the time. And then, of course, if you maintain frequently and you have a good plan to practically maintain, you would avoid future problems because usually what happens is that assets fail like a domino effect, right? So if a moving asset has a belt that wears out, the belt cuts, what are you going to get? You're going to get some parts of the engine overheating. You're going to get some burnt gaskets. You're going to get, so there'll be a ripple effect from just that belt cutting, right? So you don't want that compounding of problems because you did not pay attention to a belt. And then ensures equipment warranties are maintained, all right? So most original equipment manufacturers, OEMs, will indicate certain conditions in which if you meet those conditions, your warranty will be maintained, which means if there's any observation of a defect within a certain period of time, they will come back to either replace the component or replace the entire asset because that's what the warranty says, right? But if you did not have a maintenance plan that shows alignment with what the manufacturer has prescribed, the manufacturer can easily put the blame on you for that defect and end up not taking care of your warranty or reimbursing you for loss at that time because you did not create a maintenance. But you can say, oh, well, we are doing everything you said in the manual, we're doing it very well. You need the maintenance plan and the record of the maintenance to prove that you're actually doing it. And this can extend beyond warranties, even insurance companies. When you want to place, your business or your organization, your facility or property on insurance, they want to see that you're not a reckless and risky person. That if they take the insurance and collect a small premium for you, not one out of some negligence, burn down the house, and they'll have a huge liability or have a major breakdown that leads to a huge liability that the insurance company will have to, cough out money to cover you for because you pay the premium, right? If you do have a proper maintenance program in place, the insurance company will be happy not only to insure you, but to insure you at a well-discounted premium. All right, so they can give you insurance premium that is lower than that of your neighbor because they see that in your own property, there is proper maintenance going on because the risk is reduced. And because they have evaluated the risk as reduced, they will also give you a reduced premium to pay for insuring your facility. Keep facilities running effectively and efficiently helps in being abreast of small issues. Because your maintenance plan is a program that's like a dashboard, it makes you pay attention to every asset. So even if items or asset items that you might have overlooked, you will not overlook it this time, because the specific action tied to each of these assets is there in your maintenance plan. You are forced to give consideration to what is in your maintenance plan. So we're still building up to what makes up a maintenance plan, the scope of the maintenance program, timelines for each activity, resource allocation, who will do what, maintenance checklist, which is like a quality assurance tool or a quality control tool. It's more or less a quality control tool that helps you determine whether the maintenance has been done and to what quality that control, maintenance has been done. So if somebody has done a maintenance activity, a checklist helps you to tick, 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 and verify that it was done well and the output is also well. Okay, your maintenance schedule is what you created initially as your plan, and then you record what has been done. So you have, it starts with a maintenance strategy where you have strategies for all the assets, goes into the maintenance schedule where you have dates and time scheduled for different activities that you have in your maintenance plan. And then with those schedules, you create like a mirror of it, which will become your maintenance records. You are recording observations from inspections, you're recording results from tests, and then other activities that you have performed on that asset, so that there will be a history that can be referenced for that particular asset. Key considerations for maintenance planning: make sure you have a comprehensive asset register. The asset inventory or register is the basis. It's like for those of you who understand project management, you know, when you're creating starting a project, the first thing you try to generate is your work breakdown structure, where you identify all the major deliverables and all the major tasks that are totally performed under each deliverable, and then the sub-tasks that are performed under each task. That's basically what the asset register is like. You're creating a spreadsheet and a layout of all your assets. Okay, so that's the first thing. You must know all your assets. It's because if you don't know the asset, then you cannot be very sure of what maintenance to put in place. You may just be following what others have been doing. So the first thing is your maintenance asset register. You need to know and have a record of assets in order to choose a maintenance strategy. All right. And then it's because you have that list of assets, quantities, and all the other details, you can now create a maintenance budget, which is often an estimate, but you must use best judgment and experience from historical data to come up with the maintenance budget. So you should have a budget for both the reactive and the predictive, as well as the planned preventive. I mean, that's the preventive, predictive, and the run to failure items. So at this point, I need to share with you some experiences. I've had us as facility managers use this word called servicing. Your photocopiers are being serviced, your generators are being serviced, your boreholes are being serviced, your transformers are being serviced. You know, all kinds of assets are being serviced these days. And so that brings me to the question: what is servicing in facility management, in maintenance? The last time I asked this question around, I didn't quite get a coherent response. Most people have different understanding of the word servicing. So I'll share with you a few experiences that I've had that has helped me to form my opinion that servicing as an item, a word, it should be removed completely from our vocabulary, because it will mean too many different things to too many people. One experience was my own personal experience with a wristwatch, where I needed it to be replaced, the battery to be replaced within it because it wasn't working. It stopped working. So I guess, oh, it's been 2 years old, so there must be a need to replace the battery. I go to the watch repairer and he says, okay, battery is 1,000 naira. I'll replace the battery before you come back and you pick it up. I said, that's fine. That's fair deal. I come back and he says, I replaced the battery, but I realized that it has not been serviced before, so I serviced it. Battery was 1,000, servicing is now 2,500. I was supposed to now pay 2,500 extra. So I was curious, what is servicing? I was like, what did you do? That was when he showed me what servicing meant to him. He dipped a toothbrush into a kerosene, a small cup of kerosene, dripped it into my watch, brushed it a few soft strokes, blew it with his mouth, and he says, see, I have serviced it. And I said, fantastic. The kerosene was a lubricant and the brush was a cleaner. So you lubricated and cleaned my wristwatch. Fantastic. I now understand what you did. How much should I pay you? I ended up adding 500 naira to him for that servicing, right? But servicing, the way he presented it to me, if I had not probed further, would have been something so big and so important that I probably would have paid the 2,500 without thinking. All right. So just because I dug in a little bit to understand what servicing meant, then I got to pay less for cleaning and lubricating. The second experience I had a couple of years ago was for a generator in the mall that I was providing management consulting for. Blew up. The FM comes in to say, oh well, we don't know how this happened. It shouldn't have blown up. It was an off-peak period. The gen was really at 30–40% of its capacity, so there was no reason why this explosion should take place and we lose the whole generator. We're doing our servicing, so there's no doubt that we've done our own parts. So this must be an act of God. So for the FM, what is servicing? It was completely clueless. Had no idea what servicing meant. It just knows that the contractors come in there, they do all their thing, and they invite him to come and check. And when he comes in there, one, he finds that the gen is now clean compared to before those guys came. And two, the gen is now working. According to him, the smoke level has reduced and the sound level has calmed down. So it means they have serviced it well, so they can go. And then the invoice is invoice for servicing of the generator, which we pay, and the vendor always gets this money without any hitch, until we call the vendor to say, please tell us, you say you've been servicing this gen all along, and this gen in an off-peak period just puffed, and went there. What could have been the problem? He says, oh, he doesn't understand what could have happened. Also, the popular claim of act of God. So we asked the question, what is servicing? You're the one doing the servicing. What is servicing? That was when the truth started to unravel. These guys come to the gen, they clean. Constant component of what they do is that they clean all around the gen and the gen room. Then they check the oil level. If the level is okay, then they use their hand to feel the oil viscosity. If it is too low, then they will take out the oil and put new oil. But if it feels a bit okay, what they will do is check if it is reduced in quantity. If it's reduced in quantity, they just do a little top up. And this was going on and on for months, running into a year. Now, they were using their own judgment to decide what servicing meant every time they came, and were paying the same invoice every time they came. So if I were to ask you what is servicing today, I'm sure I'm going to get all kinds of responses from you as well. And that's why I talk about maintenance scope. Do not use servicing as something you pay for. Do not use servicing as an invoice line item or an invoice item. Don't use servicing as an agreement between yourself and the vendor when that servicing items are not broken down into a maintenance scope. So you outline maintenance activities, the work to perform under the maintenance contract, what goes down into specific tasks. Define the activities specific to a maintenance contract. So you have the task, and the task has a set of activities that are performed under it. And how that activity and deliverable should be delivered over time in terms of frequency and timelines and milestones. And then it helps in smooth functioning of the activities and also helps to avoid conflict in the contract. So let me give you how I will repackage that generator contract. I will target maintenance service. I will put in the scope that says the oil is this quantity, the filter is this specification, the coolant is this specification and this quantity. I will do all of that in there because they will all stand as line items for me to compute my maintenance activities. Because there will be times when certain aspects of those maintenance scope, I will be the one to say, we don't need to change them. Or we don't need to do that aspect, we need to do this and that. I want to be able to pay for exactly what I use in terms of service. So that's why I don't recommend all of this so-called OEM scam that is going on all over the country, where an OEM sells you an equipment, hoodwinks you to think that if they're not the one maintaining, you're not entitled to warranty. That is a fallacy. In fact, if I'm going to buy an asset and they are tying that condition into that asset, I'll have to think of my next option, because the purchase cost of an asset is often not as significant compared to the continuous running cost. So if somebody has told me that they are the only ones that can maintain, and I see their maintenance cost as exorbitant, it should form my opinion and my decision not to even buy that asset in the first place. Because ideally, warranty should not be tied to a monopoly for maintenance. In one case, I had two generators from two different OEM reps on the same site. When each one gave me their quote for their own maintenance, both were very high by my own assessment, and they were all lump sum kind of contract, where they have all of those lists of exclusions, list of things they want to do, a frequency and activities they will execute. But then when they want to price it, they price it as a lump sum amount, which wasn't didn't sit quite well with me, because I couldn't break down from that analysis or from that quote what the oil cost and what the filter cost and what the other labor cost and other activities that go into that maintenance will be. Of course, that shouldn't have been a problem for me because that's what they've been doing for years. But when I asked each of them to give me a quote for the rivals generators maintenance, I found out that they were willing to do it for less, right? So Mr. A was willing to do Mr. B's gen maintenance for less, and Mr. B was willing to do Mr. A's gen maintenance for less. That baffled me, because it now tells me that I'm actually paying a premium for my warranty to be valid. Next time they give you that impression, ask them to give you the warranty statement. What does the warranty say? For most of these manufacturers, they have rewarded, repackaged warranty terms and conditions they send to Nigeria, different from what they send to other countries, because they will have to exclude things like if you operate it poorly, if you open it up, if your power fluctuates and causes problem, if you buy the wrong diesel or you buy the wrong oil to service it, if anything goes bad, it's your fault, right? So basically, they are targeting all of the reasons that our own equipment will fail and excluding them from what the warranty covers. So if I look at that kind of warranty, ladies and gentlemen, I see no value in that warranty, because the warranty actually says your real experience is not covered. So what is covered that I'm paying a premium for maintenance for does not hold again at that time, right? So I move away and say, you know what, the warranty is useless. It happened to me in the early 2000s with sharp photocopiers, those large photocopiers. If you do the work with the OEM rep those days, it was, I mean, when money had value, 480,000 naira, and that 480,000 naira is about, and that's for 1 year, it's about 25–30% the value of the entire asset. And then the contract says it does not include all of those replacement of drums and lens and this and that, you know. So it's almost like an amount I will pay for call out, check, and go and get me the parts. So why would I be tied to that? Says, oh, well, because of warranty. The warranty, my dear, does not follow because it's not really valuable. Try to read between the lines when you have those documents. So you can tell yourself, if I can do something for 240,000 with this guy, and you, the OEM rep, say I should pay you 480,000, that means there's a premium of 240 on what you are offering. And if that premium of 240 is basically to enable me enjoy my warranty, then I need to put my warranty beside that 240,000. Read my warranty and see what the odds are of me getting anything from this warranty in case of any fault. But of course, these are cases that you may not be able to, you may not be the one making such decisions. You may have to just make business cases to senior management to get approval to go away from the OEM because of cost and move on with other engineering companies who can deliver the same thing. And many of us don't even realize that when you have a warranty claim, an OEM rep in Nigeria may not listen to you initially, right? Because they have all the other biased reasons why they think you have lost your warranty. But if you write straight, using your parts number or engine number, straight to manufacturers anywhere they are in the world, and they've checked that they actually made your equipment, they will still refer you back to the OEM rep here, but they would have acknowledged certain warranty rights that you had that you did not even know that you have. So it's a lesson for all of us to learn. So what makes up the maintenance scope? The maintenance scope is part of your maintenance plan for each asset, right? The scope includes the objectives, the deliverables, the work procedures to be performed, the maintenance schedule, the timeline, the costs, service level agreement, and the maintenance requirements, other conditions, quality considerations, and cautions that go into how that maintenance will be performed. These are one aspect of your maintenance scope, which forms part of your maintenance plan. And we've talked about knowing the condition of your assets before you define your maintenance program. In fact, perform your condition assessments, determine the condition of the assets, create all of those repair work that need to be done to bring the asset up to certain standard that aligns with the corporate objectives. Now, those are what we call remedial works. They can be categorized according to prioritized according to criticality, safety, and relevance to the organization. So we basically group them into these ones we can live with. Do it at our pace, maybe in a year or so, you know, like repainting a place or retiling a floor when the floor is not looking very nice, but it's not cracked, right? There are some that are urgent, things that if you don't fix them, we may not be able to use this facility or may not be productive in this space. And then you have the critical ones, things that cause hazards or unsafe condition. If they're not done and done quickly, you can't even use the asset at all in the first place. And then you now have the defects, the scope of the defects, scope of work to fix those defects, the costs for fixing that scope of work, and the time it will take to execute that work. So that when somebody is giving you a facility to start managing or start maintaining, the condition assessment is actually the first thing, because that helps you to fine-tune your own maintenance program. Because if you don't have the information on the condition of the asset, the maintenance program may be going in one direction and you'll be having the different kind of results that you don't expect. Okay, and then all your future budgets, all the activities you're going to perform in the future are tied to that first effort of creating a condition assessment. For you to be able to effectively manage a site, a category of a portfolio of assets, you need to not only get information on how the assets are that you came to take over. That's the condition assessment you've just done. You also need historical information on how maintenance has been carried out on that asset over time. It provides useful information for maintenance plan. It provides information on previous maintenance actions, helps with budgeting for future maintenance activity, because if you know what's been spent on the assets in the past, you know how costs have run on that asset, and how many of the parts have been replaced, components have been replaced. It gives you an indication of what to expect. If I'm managing a large equipment and I realize that maybe the compressor was replaced, maybe a massive chiller system or air handling units, the compressor has been replaced only recently. That means that component is new, right? That component is very solid at this point. So my maintenance plan will be laid with that understanding that I'm not going to have problem from this one, at least for a number of years, because that's what happens with that particular type of asset component. And then if you've been managing a site, I was in a building today where we have elevators that were installed in the early 60s. And then I wasn't surprised the elevators were being epileptic. But if I met them working, I've done a condition assessment, and I did not know that they were installed in the early 60s, for example. Neither did I know what kind of maintenance has happened between then and now, how many components have been replaced, you know, how many times the cabling has been changed, the sensors, and so on and so forth. I probably will not be able to envisage when major issues can occur. For such an elevator, for example, even if it's working today, I will always have my eyes on it, because for some to have worked for 50 years or 60 years, it's obvious that so many things are old within that system, and any major breakdown can occur. So I'll be ready. So I know how future problems can occur and how much.
Now, why can I come on you?
If your equipment have been over-maintained, under-maintained, or poorly maintained, you get that sense from what you have. And this is one big problem that contracting companies, FM companies have. The client wants you to come and take over their facilities to maintain and run for them. And, you know, when you see how the place has been maintained over the years, you know that it's been poorly maintained or under-maintained, but the client wants you to do it at a lower cost, right? So how do you benchmark the cost of good quality maintenance with poor maintenance that has been happening in the past and still be able to save costs? That's a dilemma that FM companies have to deal with today. So this is just a rundown. We've gone through most of these items, you know, pick out the assets, evaluate asset cost of repair and replacement, frequency of each of those maintenance activities. You put some priority to the assets, so that is the priority that helps you to determine the priorities that help you determine which assets are critical for the various strategies that you're going to deploy. You know, assets that will affect health and safety. For example, you want to use the most consistent routine activities to manage them, and so on and so forth. And then you can't create your maintenance plan without referring to the equipment manufacturer's manual, okay? It's very important that we have the manuals for every of our assets. And I know many of us will say, oh, we made these assets here, they're old assets, we no longer, we don't have any documentation in place. All you need is the asset, you know, brand, the model, and serial number. You go online and you can get virtually any manual, okay? And then, of course, because you're following the manual, you now know the various tasks to be performed. You now know how to schedule the activities, because part of maintenance plan preparation is we are thinking of your maintenance as something that creates downtime on its own, right? And because it creates downtime on its own, you have to be careful when to put that downtime. So you don't go and shut an equipment down for maintenance at the time it is needed most, right? So you want to reduce the impact of your own maintenance of that asset on your organization, because that's what happens if you come to work like every other person and you decide to shut the gen down by 9:30 a.m. because that's when the contractor showed up to come and do the servicing, right? So people are wondering, why exactly do you need to do this servicing now when we all just resumed for work? Why can't you do it when we are closing from work and when we are not here? Those are the kind of questions that are asked because you are not doing maintenance plan. Because if you are doing maintenance plan, you are thinking of the impact of your own maintenance on the availability of the assets. And if you have, and that's one of the things we picked up in the preventive maintenance strategy, you do certain things at certain frequencies, and if it's an asset that you have to take out of operation to do those activities, then you are creating downtime, occasioned by the maintenance activities themselves, not downtime that comes out of breakdown. Okay, and then all of your weekly, monthly, quarterly plans, and then also ensure that items that are on reactive or run to failure have their own plans, their firm contracts in place, their budgets, and people to respond when that time comes. And then you train your maintenance teams using work method statements. This is very important because part of the quality class we had on Wednesday was that Mr. A could do the same work very well, and Mr. B comes to do it, and people are not satisfied with his effort. That is because they are not working to the same work method statements. If they're working to the same work method statement, the output should always be consistent. And then safety. Every maintenance plan must consider safety, and you must put things in place to ensure that safety is ensured, including things like your safety data sheets. When you use any kind of substance or material on any in any job, whether routine or non-routine, you must have a safety data sheet. Safety data sheet we'll talk about in the health and safety classes, but it's a document that details the core or key components, key ingredients of every substance that you put to use in your work. It talks about how they are transported, how they are used, the purpose for which they are used, the poison classification. Most chemicals are poisonous, and then how to prevent exposure, prevent the inhalation, prevent swallowing, prevent contact with skin, and how to mitigate these negative effects if they do occur by accident, right? Those are the kind of things that you see in an SDS. And because you have that and you have trained people on handling those equipment, they will use the proper PPEs and follow the right procedures to work with them. There are some very simple chemicals you probably think it's harmless, like the things we use for insecticides and fumigation, or even glues, and sometimes detergents and oils that we find everywhere around our operations. Without an SDS, we don't know the implication of exposure. That's why some people will go ahead and start taking milk and malt when they've been exposed to very dangerous, toxic chemicals used in killing our neighbors, the pests and insects around us. And then job safety analysis, a document that picks out hazard by hazard, identifies them proactively, and is used to analyze those hazards and put measures in place to ensure that those hazards do not become risk, or reducing the impact or risk of such a hazard around the workplace. And then permit to work, a witnessing document that helps us to testify that all the hazards identified in the job safety analysis have been taken care of, and multiple officials and people both involved in the work, supervising the work, and the back-end management signed to say we've done all the checks that needs to be done. So a permit to work system has a JSA and an SDS and a safe work method statement as embedded documents. The permit to work document is like the cover document that certifies that all these precautions written here, we have fulfilled them in the documents that are on the line. When you're doing your maintenance, we talk about this maintenance plan and maintenance plan, you must be able to track how the maintenance is, is going. Technicians cannot just stroll into your campus and spend 5 hours doing one task, right? The teams you have on ground will not be infinite. You probably will have, many of us have this issue where technicians, 4 technicians in a big site, and we're always shouting that they're not enough, we need to get more people, we need to get paid for overtime and so on and so forth. If you are able to create a tracking mechanism for each maintenance activity where you know how long a particular activity should take by some estimates, which you work with the technicians to put together, it will be easy to get more done because everybody now knows what to expect from each other. If I'm working on an air conditioner, I'm supposed to service the air conditioner in 20 minutes, for example. By the time I'm in 15 minutes, 18 minutes, I know that the record shows that I should have done it in 20 minutes. I'm cautioning myself, right? I'm not going to get involved in gist or start holding a long 10 minutes phone call in between that job, right? Because that's commonly all the kind of things we will do on site when we don't know that people expect us to get done in a particular time limit. So you set that time with the guys who are going to do the work, and they should know that when they start a job and when they finish it, they record it, and we'll see how long that job takes them. We are tracking that progress. If they're doing it better and better, we are tracking it. And if you do it fast and there's no rework, that is effective and efficient, right? If you do it fast and there's a rework, then you have an issue of trying to be efficient, but then not effective because the job was not done as you expect, okay? And then so we're going to be using this tracking mechanism to score performance of each person on the team. And then for every work that you need to do in a maintenance plan, what materials will be required, how much will this cost, and what tools will be required. Now, these things are very important so that people going out to do a particular task have information, have what it takes. Not we got there with one screwdriver, I realized we need a plier, we come back to ask for a plier, and then by the time we needed a wrench, we come back for a wrench. But this activity of having a maintenance plan and a maintenance tracking system within that plan will ensure that we identify for every maintenance activity the hours or time it will take, the materials required, the cost, and the tools to execute that particular task itself. One thing that has made all of this easy for us now is the computerized maintenance management system. That's the CMMS. The computerized maintenance management system is a way to put in all our assets into an automation software where all the assets are given a maintenance strategy and maintenance activities are entered for each one. Everything you do in a spreadsheet, you do it inside the CMMS, and it automatically prompts you to go and take those action. Now, the other side where it is more beautiful is the fact that when you have taken the action, you report back into it, and it locks in that report into that task, into that asset on which that task was performed. And that becomes a perpetual record that has been kept. Because this is one area where we have issues. In the past, we used to have those cards folded up, tucked behind the air conditioners. Some offices still have those, right? So when I come to do any job on that AC, I pull it out, I record the date, and we have it in fire extinguishers, for example, and so on and so forth. Now, but that data that is in those cards are static data that are left, all over the place, and not much is done with the data. So somebody goes there to go and look at it. Imagine that data in a spreadsheet entered into in a spreadsheet. It's a little bit better because at least I can do some analysis on a spreadsheet. I can set up prompts on a spreadsheet, right? And I get a sense of what's been done. If I look at that spreadsheet on a daily basis, I get a sense of what's next to be done in the next few days, and so on and so forth, right? So that's what that's how the evolution from paper work orders and asset maintenance logs to logbooks to spreadsheets and into computerized maintenance management system, which will enable me to do more complex things like filter, search, aggregate costs and time spent across assets, types and assets, particular assets, as well as across resource pools and individuals on the team. I can use that to measure performance of my technicians at the end of the month, because I can filter out all the work orders one particular person has done, look at the time spent on all of them, average time spent on the work order, and use that to decide whether the person is being productive or not. Beyond the computerized systems, which is not very common around us, I encourage that you have simple automations. You don't necessarily need to buy software. These days, you could actually integrate a spreadsheet maintenance plan in Google Docs or Google Sheets and turn that into a form that people can complete information back into it on the field, and you have the information on the back end. So you have your plan. When they act on those plans, they report back into the same form, and you have that report to generate at the end of it. So it's quite easy these days to start with simple automation using free tools that we have. Now, the maintenance checklist. For you to be efficient or effective in what you do, you need to, you don't just assume that people know what they should do. Of course, they know what they should do. You've trained them very well, right? But putting a checklist in place helps them to stay focused, helps them to make sure that nothing is missed, helps them to, in fact, just basically removing as much as possible human error from the process, okay? So everything you want to inspect, every task you want to perform, there are steps to it. You put those steps in there, and people are forced to refer to it. The items on the maintenance checklist will vary depending on the maintenance strategy being adopted. A preventive maintenance checklist will vary from a predictive maintenance checklist, and the same way for a reactive one. The reason being that the former involves taking equipment out of service for maintenance so that a larger problem does not occur in the future. The latter involves the monitoring of equipment to determine when maintenance will be necessary. So in essence, you're basically using the strategy, the set of activities that have been created, you are lifting that into a checklist so that you can say, has this one been done? Has this one been done? Has this one been done, right? So if I want to do servicing of ACs, like we always say servicing, right? But the maintenance scope is already been defined, which says indoors, I do these activities, outdoors, I do this. Is my audio bad? I think my audio is good. Who's complaining about my audio?
The audio is okay. It's okay.
Okay,
Yeah, very audible.
Your audio is perfect, sir.
Okay, thank you. Right, so back to that air conditioning example, for example, I go into the indoor unit, I open it, take out the filter, step one, do that to the filter, clean it or wash it, and bring it back. I bring in a suction nozzle and suck the drain, the debts in the internal drain out. I bring in a vacuum, I suck up all the dust in the evaporator, right? I put five steps already, okay? By putting the steps down here, I have told the technician, I expect you to follow step one, step two, step three when you are doing this particular activity. So for every maintenance activity, I'll have one sheet. I can laminate it as a guide. I put it all over the wall in the maintenance room. I can have it as something that whenever I'm giving you a work order to go and do a particular job, I give you that particular laminated sheet to say, this is the guideline for performing this particular task. If I do that consistently with every technician that goes out to perform a task and they all follow it, then there will be consistency. But to ensure that consistency, I'll have to have another, that same checklist that I've laminated into a sheet that he can use his own hand to testify that, yes, I did it. Step one, I did step one, step two, I followed this procedure and I did it. Because it becomes an integrity issue if he tries to cut corners and miss any of those steps and something comes out at the end of it. For example, he skipped on sucking off the drain inside the indoor units of your split unit ACs, right? He did not clean the internal drain, and then there's a call tomorrow that water is leaking inside the house. And when we get back in there, we see some slimy and some green stuff that are gathered inside that drain, which means when he came to do the services, he skipped that item. And then we go and check the checklist where he said he followed, and it ticks that he did that item. I'll fire you immediately because that is dishonest. Okay, we shouldn't be accommodating integrity lapses. And those kind of things should be written into our consequence management matrix in our organization so that we can just be sure that people, when they say, I've done this, they actually have done it. Without that checklist, there was no way he would have told me he had done it. Even if I gave him that laminated sheet that has a step-by-step process of going to do it, there's no way for knowing that he actually did it if he does not come back with a filled out checklist. Okay, and this is key to the whole process of understanding that everybody are doing their job. I'm a facility manager. I cannot, micromanage everybody. I cannot follow everybody around. I just need to be able to sit back. Of course, I don't mind by walking around as much as possible, but I cannot fully capture what each person is doing. So I need them, I need the staff, I need the team to be able to come back with information. But that information, I will need to design it and share it so that they can provide feedback as they are performing the job on an ongoing basis. Okay. All right, so the key tool for maintenance record is called the work order. The work order. The work order is a document that identifies what work should be done. That work would have come from the preventive maintenance plan. That work would have come from a fault call by a user. As soon as any of those are triggered, a work order should be issued. The work order now includes a statement of the work that needs to be done. And if you have predefined the work method statements, it's also going to be attached there. The location where that work will be done, the asset itself, the asset ID and asset description is in that work order. Now, the technician or the contractor, whoever is assigned that work order, is supposed to have a space where he can scope what needs to be done. So he puts a scoping of what needs to be done. And then a space where you can report on what was done. Because why you need to scope what needs to be done, especially for reactive work, is that you may need further approvals, you may need materials from store to go and buy some things, and you may need, to communicate with that work order to other people, right? So that information goes in back and forth, and you get approval and you come back. And when you now finally do the work, you need to report what you have done, report on your observation. And the work order, especially if it's a reactive work order, should also have a place where the customer who called for that job should either comment or rate the work that has been done on a scale of 1 to 5, whatever, in 1 or 2 parameters to say, how did we do on this job? Because that work order now becomes the tool for identifying work, whether from preventive or from reactive call-outs, scoping work, executing work, reporting on the work, and getting survey of feedback from customers on how they perceive the work has been done. Okay, so that's basically the tool. And that work order becomes the way of logging. That is from that work order you now log into a spreadsheet for reporting, logbook, into a CMMS. Of course, if you're in a CMMS, computerized maintenance management system, that work order will be electronic. So you fill in the information back in and then it automatically goes in. Everybody that works in that work order will feed the information back in and to go back into the system. Some of these items are a bit repeated, so I'll just ask you to read them. It's also important to understand that once you are taking maintenance record, work orders logged in and you're creating reports weekly, daily, weekly, monthly reports, and quarterly reports, and annual reports for your facility. There is a record retention policy for most organizations. If you don't have a record retention policy, at least your routine operational records must be kept on site. Nowadays, we mostly do electronic copies perpetually, but some organizations will do 7 years, some will do 3 years. That's because the work orders themselves may no longer need to be referenced because you've aggregated information from those work orders into a system and that can be referenced in the future. But it's important that you have the records for people to be able to access at some point. If you have a chiller system that will be here for 25 years, you cannot lose information on how many times the compressors have been replaced, you cannot lose how many times it has failed. That reporting that is extracted from the work order must be kept perpetually on site or in a retrieval system so that people can get access to them. It's a huge asset to have proper maintenance record because people servicing an asset, maintaining an asset, repairing an asset, they get to know, what happened before. They get a sense of the history, the problems they had before. It's easier to judge a problem that you're experiencing now because you've seen the history, okay? And then track, when it needs to undergo maintenance, especially when you're trying to schedule frequencies for certain maintenance activities. Sometimes you may need to do something quicker than before because you've looked at the history, and if you keep it longer, it will become problematic. A benefit of performing maintenance and keeping records, of course, we've gone through some of this, but again, it helps to increase ease of warranty claims. I mentioned that before. Safety is a key part of this. Longevity through accountability, identifying trends across makes, models, or companies. When somebody say, "Oh, this equipment is user friendly. This one is easily maintainable. This one is has a better second-hand value," and all kinds of things we talk about. So many times we make those kind of statements without even backing them up with data. So if somebody says this model and this brand, which is better, and you say, "Oh, I prefer this one," based on what? Based on what? It has to be based on data. And one of the key data you get from the records that you keep is your mean time between failures. The predicted elapsed time between inherent failures of a system during operation. Describe the expected time between two failures for a repairable system. Can be calculated as the average time between failures of a system. So basically, if you have an equipment that failed 15 times last year, 15 times divided by 12 or 15 times divided by 365 becomes your mean time between failures. So you get that as a number for a certain period of time. You say this thing fails once monthly, it fails 10 times annually, and things like that, because it helps you measure how reliable the system is. So whoever is dealing with it knows that I'm going to have it or I'm not going to have it to use. All right, we talked about the asset register details, things that you must have in your asset registers, very important. And then for the records, the type of work that was carried out, the time it was done, who did it, and so on. Even the costs must be captured as reports into the maintenance records. All right, and then have the filing systems, whether the filing system is electronic or computer electronic or paper-based. The filing system ensures that you can retrieve information when you need them. I've been through some very chaotic FM documentation systems where I'm looking for information. I know the information is somewhere in this pile of papers where I just don't know how long it will take me to find it, and then I give up and I'm moving elsewhere. And sometimes I claim I don't have it. That's because it wasn't properly cataloged and filed in a way that can easily accessed. Even our electronic documents these days have failed to meet minimum requirements of filing. Many of us have computers where the files we receive, the records we receive, the reports we receive from our technicians are all modeled up into different folders that when it's time to search out for them, it becomes a nightmare. Okay, so have a naming convention for file saving. So you can have a naming convention is a simple syntax or pattern for saving a folder or a file, right? For files, for example, for files that I will receive from multiple people, same subject, I will say subject, name, and date as my convention. So if I'm saying the subject is weekly reports, for example, that's the subject, weekly reports, right? And then name, weekly report from the SARO, for example, and then dates, July 2021. If I save that file, use that conversion on all weekly reports, I'll be able to go straight to a particular weekly report anytime I'm looking for it. I can filter with the SARO's name, I can filter with months, I can filter with the subject, and I can get all those documents out. That's the whole idea. I can do the same thing with folders. Okay, I can create, once a folder becomes unwieldy, I see all the documents that are becoming too bunched up, I'll create subfolders. Okay, so I can now pick files and put those subfolders within that folder and create a hierarchy that I can use to access it anytime I want to. talked about record retention and tracking of work. I've talked about work orders and how to schedule work activity. Okay, so I'll stop here at this time. I would like to have your questions. We have an assessment to this class. Fantastic. All right, so let's discuss. A comment to make?
Sorry, thank you very much, Mr. Paul.
Okay.
The last 1 month has been of tremendous importance, and there's really been a lot of assistance, you know, with the practical things that we've been going through and has been happening. So in the last 2.5 weeks, there's been a whole lot of serious issue at one of the estates that I manage.
Okay.
In fact, it's so good, a colleague of mine also is in the class, you know. And this is what happens. In that our facility, we have about 50 flats for expatriate of a very big organization, which, you know, I can't mention the name.
Yeah.
Now, I have a plumber working in that estate. When I joined the organization, an engineer was managing the facility for me. So he just reports to me on activities there. So all of a sudden, the engineer was pulled out of that facility. So this is my colleague here. He was helping with supervising the cleaners, the plumbers, and the gardeners. Fortunately for me, the plumber was not doing maintenance in the real sense of doing maintenance. And he was a belligerent guy with issues that comes up. He's always assuming the people, our clients, are trying to boss him around. But rather they want the best of service.
Yes.
Instead of him learning, he's being belligerent to the extent that there's a shutdown with his sewage treatment. The water plant was a mess. Water was not flowing. We're having problem. At the point, the expatriate, over 100 expatriates could not go to work. They had to down tools because there was no water for them to shower. In fact, let me name the company. It's Dangote.
Wow.
Aliko himself got to know that over 100 people did not come to work on that Monday. It affected production. You know, you can imagine what it would be like. So it was a crisis period to the extent that last year I arrested the man that did cylinder for us, not knowing that the issue was even beyond the cylinder. There's been no proper management of the water system for a long time.
Yes.
You understand? But we just had to manage the situation. It was even one of the external plumber that helped us to discover that you have sludge in all your lines. You understand? So we had to do a total overhaul from the borehole through the aeration tank, replacing the cylinder with fiber, washing the ground tank of about 200,000 liters, the tank on the stanchion, and Mr. Paul, you won't believe you me, the water is as clear as anything now, very clean. Now, because of the high content of water, we discovered that instead of doing 6-month maintenance will be every 2 months. Washing of the tank, doing back washing. The only thing we will not do is we will not change median in 2 months. We'll be changing the median every 6 months.
Yes.
There was no asset register, there was no maintenance register. So all these we are just putting in place, me and my colleague that is online now. Amen. So it was with all, you know, that we've been learning in class, it really helped to manage the situation. Now, this is the point. I've not been in the organization up to 1 year and 6 months. You know what? I can't start justifying myself or putting blame on others. I just told my GM, I said, you know what? I take responsibility for all these things. For the fact that I took responsibility, the issues came down. There was no query, there was nothing. It was a case of, oh, you are assuming leadership mantle, not trying to push blame on anybody.
Yes.
I took, you know, the responsibility. So we've been able to surpass that. The clients are happy. The water is clear. They can see the effort has made a good sense. You understand? So right now, like learning from this class also, asset register is important. Maintenance register is important. So even if you don't have the computerized system, when you are doing work by observing, you know that, oh, this thing has been done, we need to do it. When is the next schedule? When is the next day? You know, So it has been a tremendous, you said it at the beginning of the class, that things we will learn along it, there are things that will help us in the course of discharging or carrying out our tasks and responsibilities.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much once again.
Thank you for that, Tila. That was fantastic. You see, and that's something that we try to do with this class. We don't make it academic. We try to make it something that you can actually act on immediately. What I would just advise you is, now that you are seeing this traction, these improvements starting to come to place, you must start focusing on documentation. Like you said, your asset register is coming up, your maintenance plan, and good enough, we give you the dockets to do your projects right away. So you even have those templates to immediately start working on. Use them now to put those documentation in place and start creating a reporting system for reporting your progress as you are doing this. Because, FMs are the ones in most organizations that are going to be blamed for all crises. FMs are the ones that are going to be asked, when there are no crises, what are you even doing, Seth? What's your work here, right? So at both ends, you really need to have proper documentation of work that you are doing. Your plans, your reporting, and your records of historical activities. Yes, your hand is up, but you're 14. Can you change your name?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. What's your name?
Innocent is my name.
Innocent. Always change your name to your name on your screen. Go to more,
yes,
click on rename.
I just changed the system and I was in a bid to rush and join the class. That was why it happened. Okay. I will take care of it.
All right, Innocent, go ahead with your question.
Okay, sir. Sir, I want to believe that there are certain skills that a facility manager should have with respect to attention to details, especially because some of these things are inherent and some of these attributes are totally lacking in certain persons. This I don't care attitude, this freestyle of life. So they apply it in job, they apply it in various aspects of their lives, so much more that it tells much on virtually everything they are doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question here is, I would like to know, because you were on page 18, we talk about how we can establish process of tracking maintenance and activities.
Okay.
Tracking maintenance activities with respect to cost. My question is specifically with respect to time. I've seen instances where in a bid to track maintenance activities, there's have to be lots of reworks where you want these persons or workers to finish work in a period of time. You are on them, you want them to deliver within a specific period of time. And because of that, they put in all effort, they rush over the work, and then there's have to be rework. So how do we manage this such that while we are having to make them do, we are trying to track these processes, there is no rework that comes up because we manage to keep to this.
Fantastic, Innocent. That's an excellent question. Step number one, do not set the time for every task on your own. Discuss it with the team involved in it. Okay? And before you set the time for a particular type of task, observe. You observe on your own. You hang around your workers to get to know how much it takes to do certain typical work. So you have your own observation. Then two, you sit with them to discuss. For this task, how long does it typically take you? How long do you think is efficient or useful for you to execute it? They will give suggestion, right? You discuss among them, you use your own observation, you add that up, because every site is different. Some people are battling, working at heights, some people are dealing with surface work, some people are going underground, under basement and the rest. So all kinds of things. Some people have materials in their hands, kits that they can wear to have all their tools with them. Some have to hold tools, one in their teeth and one in their neck, you know, there are different conditions people work in site, right? So you observe, then you discuss. Then 3, you document how much rework you are getting with those tasks. So you have a record of how rework is trending against efficient use of time for work order execution, right? And then you sit down again with the team to discuss and find out if it is the speed of work that's leading to rework. Sometimes your rework may not be the speed of work. It may be the poor quality of materials, maybe the work process that is wrong. So you discuss the rework and try to attend to that rework. It is in the bid to attend to that rework that if you have isolated all other costs of rework, you can now narrow down to speed of execution. That's why they're not paying attention to details. Then yes, you can now adjust your expectation for that and adjust it and reschedule it. So in essence, don't work alone when taking such decisions. And 2, don't assume that rework is purely because they are working fast. But it's important that you know that it is fundamental that they work fast and deliver more. That's productivity.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, thanks, Innocent. And thanks everybody for your time in the class. I want to announce that it's time for us to pick a class governor. Within next week, we're going to require nominees. All you need to do is just send me a message. My number is 080-220-20122. You put your name and say, I nominate myself, or put your name and say, I nominate so and so person, put the person's name for governor. I will tally next week, Saturday. I will make an announcement again tomorrow for those who are coming to the physical class. And then I will tally next Saturday in the physical class and announce to you all in your group, okay? We need to have a class governor. Every class has a governor. And so you can nominate yourself or nominate anybody in your class. The duty of the governor basically is to continue running the group after the class. During the class, if there are concerns, if there are issues and things that the class wants management to consider, they can funnel it through the governor. General things, not individual things, okay? For example, the class governor can organize activities for the class. The last class had some fantastic activities organized, and it was nice. They even had fun events and one intellectual event. You can organize inspections, joint inspections as a class, and so on and so forth. It's a lifelong relationship we are building here, so we get to know and meet each other. So please, if you feel you're up to that leadership responsibility, to mobilize your classmates, nominate yourself. If you know someone else in the group, nominate him or her. Okay. Habib, is that a question or about the class governor announcement?
Yeah, good evening, sir. Good evening, Mr. Paul. Good evening, everyone in the house.
Good evening.
Yeah, it's actually about a question, not about the nomination for now, sir.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
All right. My question has to do with this project doc and the project dockets that was shared with us recently, especially the asset management. My question in that regard is, I just want to ask, for example, in my organization, I manage like up to 50 split ACs.
50
Hello?
what?
50 split AC units.
Okay.
So in that register now, so am I going to have one register for one specific unit, or I'm going to lump all the ACs together in one register? I'm just citing an example on AC. I also have other equipment that's like generator. I have like 4 of them. I can understand that the generator now, one has to be in one asset register, so that I can properly track.
Line item.
Yes, sir. But the 50 split AC, so that if you want to have adequate the maintenance date, what was changing this one, you agree with me that a capacitor might be changing a specific unit, while a compressor might be changing another unit. So if you lump all this, are we going to lump them together, or you create a different?
You can't lump. You've answered your question already. Every asset that has a unique identifier, like a serial number, has to have its own line in an asset register. Okay.
Okay, I'm missing some.
Every asset. And the way we encourage you to create your asset register is not the way you see it out there, where they'll say, this is my AC asset register in this sheet. This is my refrigerator asset register in the last sheet. This is my furniture asset register. No, that's not what we want. We want you to create asset register that is tied under the space hierarchy. So this is a building. That's the asset register for this building. In this building, there are these floors. In each floor, there are these wings or zones. In each wing, there are these spaces or rooms. In each space or room, these are the assets we have in there. I have civil assets, roof, ceiling, walls, windows. I have electrical assets. I have HVAC assets. So I will now group the things that I have in that space, and I'll do it space by space. Then I can now create different aggregates to say, if I want to add up all my spaces, the square footage of all my spaces, I can now add them up. If I want to calculate all the ceiling fans, I can now create another list like a filter. All the ACs I can filter. But my base asset should be based on the space hierarchy. Everything identified according to that space. Like your 4 generators, they are in some utility area in the compound at the back or in the front. Yes, you identify that space and the assets in there. Because if those generators also have a diesel tank around them and has some diesel monitoring equipment installed in them, those are the assets in that space, right? If your water treatment plant is also in that space, you identify the components of that water treatment plant, not as a system, but as an asset, okay? So every line item will have to be an asset that has its own maintenance plan. Because if I take a water production system, for example, the tanks have their maintenance plan. The pumps have their maintenance plan. The borehole submersible pump has its own maintenance plan, right? Because they have different activities and different schedules that will go for those ones. So I will create each one as a line item in my asset register for the space where they are located. Habib, did I answer your question?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you so much. All right, thanks guys. See you on Monday. Please submit your assignments and your surveys online. They are very useful, both for us and for you, because you're going to be scored based on the assignments and assessments that you submit. Okay? Thank you and have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye,
you.
sir.
Bye.
God bless you.